And I will ask if everybody could mute their microphones so that we can smoothly present without any um, interruptions. Okay, so welcome to our Sunday webinar. My name is Dr. Wei Fuen. I'm a double board certified physician, board certified as an internist, and board certified as a pediatrician. And today I'm going to be going through how our chronic medical conditions are rooted in reversible metabolic dysfunction. So there is now more and more science that shows that the chronic diseases we face in modern day society come from something we call metabolic dysfunction. And metabolic dysfunction is just simply a fancy medical term to say energy shortage, okay? Energy shortage. And that metabolic dysfunction, energy shortage, is driven by two things: insulin resistance and microbiome dysfunction. Those two things cause energy shortage. That energy shortage then leads to all the chronic modern day diseases. And insulin resistance is a fancy way of saying insulin not working well. So the two things that are the main issues of our problems today that cause our modern day diseases is insulin not working well and our microbiome, which is a fancy way of saying our gut is unhealthy. They lead to all the chronic medical conditions that we have by causing a shortage of energy. So what I want to do is to isolate both of these things and talk about them in depth to show you how they relate to that. Let's start with insulin not working well, insulin resistance. What is insulin resistance? To understand what insulin resistance is important to understand what insulin does in the first place. Insulin is a very important hormone in the body. A very important hormone in the body. I consider insulin to be hormone numero uno. And why insulin is very important is because of this job. The job of insulin, is to do this, is to mobilize glucose. The job of insulin is to mobilize glucose out of the blood into the cell. This is a cell. So when we eat, the glucose that we eat, the food that we eat, the end product of eating food is that glucose is released in our blood. That glucose that is released in our blood is mobilized by the command of insulin into the cell. When the glucose gets into the cell, the glucose is shunted through the mitochondria, a special organelle in the cell. And in the mitochondria, the glucose goes through a complex series of reactions called the electron transport chain that results in the production of an energy molecule called ATP. So ATP is energy. And I want you guys to understand this. Every cell in the body requires energy to function. Every cell. Without energy, a cell malfunctions. There's seven energy dependent functions of the cell and they need energy to function. So, why is insulin that important? Insulin is important because without insulin, you cannot make energy, and all the cells of our body require energy to function. The simple definition of a disease is a cell or a group of cells that have malfunction. And the number one reason why a cell malfunctions is that it lacks the energy it needs to function properly. So that's why insulin is that pivotal. I consider insulin to be what you call the CEO of the body. It sits at the peak. It dictates the smooth structure and functioning of the body. When insulin is working well, things work well in the body. So understanding the what insulin does, what then is insulin resistance or insulin not working well? Insulin resistance is simply a breakdown in this process. Anywhere where there is a breakdown in this process of insulin mobilizing glucose out of the blood into the cell so that energy can be produced, we say you have insulin resistance, or we say you have your insulin not working well. Now, the question is, what causes insulin not to work well? If you understand that, then you're going to understand how you can get your insulin working well. If I have a car, it breaks down, I take it to the mechanic. The very first thing that the mechanic is going to do is the mechanic wants to find out what caused Dr. Dieter's car to break down. If the mechanic can figure out what caused Dr. Dieter's car to break down, he can walk backwards to be able to fix the issue. So we talk of insulin resistance being a breakdown in this process. What causes the breakdown in that process? I want to explain there. Two things I see that the center of causing the breakdown in this process. The two things are this. Number one, too much fat. Too much fat causes a breakdown in insulin resistance, and then that leads to the second thing. There are two things: too much insulin. Those two things result in a breakdown in that process, insulin resistance. Let me explain why. Too much of a good thing is a bad thing. Too much fat is a bad thing. Too much insulin is a bad thing. We need fat. Fat is an alternate source of energy in the nighttime when we're sleeping, when the body needs to continue to have its metabolic processes go on. The body switches its dependence from glucose to needing fat. So we need fat. But when does too much fat become a problem? This is how it occurs. When we eat, all the calories that we eat are converted to glucose, and a portion of it is converted into fat. Any excess calories that the bodies do not need, the body converts that into fat and stores them into the cell. So, for example, if you consume way more calories than you're supposed to, those excess calories are going to be converted into fat. The body is going to take that fat and stuff it in a cell. Normally, a cell is supposed to look like this. A normal cell is supposed to look like that. When you consume more calories than you're supposed to, that excess calories gets converted into fat. The fat now, the body takes that fat and stores it in this cell. I'm making a replica of this cell and stores the fat in this cell. And all of a sudden, this cell is filled with fat. Remember, the job of insulin is that when there is glucose in the blood, insulin is going to walk and tell the cell, hey, cell, I have glucose in the blood. I want you to take it up. It takes up the glucose and then uses the glucose to make energy. But you now have this cell which is filled with fat. When insulin comes to this cell and knocks on the door of the cell, knock, 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 cell, I got glucose in the blood. I want you to take it up so that we can produce energy. The cell tells insulin, sir, where do you want me to put it? There is no room in the inn. All the beds are taken. If I let glucose in, he has no place to lay his head. That's what this cell is saying. And that's true because the room in the inn has been filled with fat. So you have a process where insulin is not able to command the cell to get glucose into the cell for energy to be produced. You have a breakdown in that process, insulin resistance. Okay, so that's the first way in which insulin doesn't work well, by fat filling the cell. Now this cell is trying to protect itself from excess energy. If you have ever eaten too much on Thanksgiving, Thanksgiving is coming up and you're Thanksgiving full, you're stuffed on Thanksgiving. The last thing in the world when you're eating too much on Thanksgiving and you feel stuffed is to put in another bite of anything into your mouth. Even if that other bite of anything is your favorite pecan pie made by your grandmother. You are grossed out because you are so full. It's exactly what this cell is feeling. The favorite food for the cell is glucose. It's its number one food, the favorite food for the cell, because the cell needs glucose to make energy so that it could function well. But in a situation where this cell is filled with fat, even its most favorite food, it doesn't want to take a bite of. So that's exactly what's happening to the cell. And what happens is that glucose accumulates in the blood because this cell has no room to take up glucose. and glucose accumulates in the blood. Now, it leads to the second way in which we develop insulin resistance, which is too much insulin. When you have too much insulin, your insulin doesn't work well. There is a one-to-one relationship between the concentration of glucose in the blood and the amount of insulin that is pumped out by the pancreas, the gland that makes insulin. So when insulin is high, the pancreas pumps out more insulin. Okay. So glucose has now accumulated in the blood because it has no way of getting into this cell. Okay. There is a text message sent to the pancreas. Hey, pancreas, the glucose concentration is too high. We need more insulin to be able to force that glucose into the blood. It now causes the pancreas to produce too much insulin, and too much insulin is no bueno. Remember, I described insulin like the CEO of the body that dictates the smooth structure and functioning of the body. Is that important. Imagine you have a CEO of an organization who has been level-headed. He is commanding the ranks well and things are going smoothly. And one day that CEO comes to work in the organization and he has gone nuts. He has gone crazy. He's belligerent. He is yelling at people in the hallway. He's giving unreasonable demands. He is firing people for no good reason, and just loses his calm. He becomes a tyrant. He becomes a bully. In a scenario like that, the employees of that CEO, of that boss, lose their respect for the boss and like, oh man, I don't know what has happened to this boss, and they lose their respect for the boss. When you lose the respect for the CEO, it becomes hard for you to do what the CEO says. So, for example, if I have a boss at work and the boss comes to me and says, "Hey, Dr. Dieter, we got this project that we need to get completed in the next 60 days, but I've lost my respect for the boss. It's hard for me to do what he says with excitement, with open arms." So and my boss says, "Can you get this project done in 60 days for me?" And I don't want to lose my job, so I cannot say no. I say yes, but I say it reluctantly. And if normally I'm the kind of employee who brings my A game to a project, because I've lost my respect for my boss man, I'm gonna bring maybe my B plus or my C game to that project. I'm gonna bring the project over the line, but I'm not gonna give it my best. You translate that to the cell. When insulin is too much, it's like a CEO that has gone crazy bullying the cell. The cell loses its respect for insulin. When the cell loses its respect for insulin, the cell is less likely to do what insulin asks it to do. The number one thing that insulin asks the cell to do is, hey, cell, open your doors so that I can let glucose in. Because of a loss of respect for insulin being a bully high. When insulin commands a cell and the cell is normally supposed to open its door this wide, the cell is going to open its door instead this wide. Okay. When the cell opens its door this wide, it's being reluctant. It's doing what insulin asks it to do, but not with all its heart. And glucose accumulates in the blood even more, because if you have the door wider, more glucose will come in. But the cell has put the door like this. So less glucose is coming in, more glucose is accumulating in the blood. That more glucose that is accumulating in the blood is a trigger for the pancreas to produce even more insulin. That even more insulin is like a CEO who was crazy at this level and raises his craziness level to here. So he was already acting crazy and wild and belligerent and what have you, and unreasonable and firing people left, right, and center. And he decides, you know what, it's not enough. I'm gonna raise my jerkness to this level. What happens is that the employees of that CEO lose even more respect for the CEO. And when they lose even more respect for the CEO, it becomes harder and harder for them to do what the CEO asks them to do. You translate that to the cell. When insulin becomes even higher, the cell loses even more respect for insulin. When the cell loses even more respect for insulin, instead of the cell having its doors like this initially, the cell had its doors like this. Now the cell has lost even more respect for insulin. The cell has its doors like this. Lesser and lesser glucose is coming into the cell, more glucose is accumulating in the blood. And so you're just having a cycle where the glucose is ramping up in the blood, causing the insulin to become more secreted by the pancreas, just worsening the cycle over and over again. So that's how too much fat and too much insulin result in your insulin not working well, insulin resistance. And when insulin is not working well, this is what happens. You develop diseases like this. Remember, insulin guarantees is the insulin helps you to make energy. When you cannot make energy, the cell cannot function. You recall that the simple definition for disease is a cell that has malfunctioned. The number one reason a cell malfunctions is lack of energy. When you do not have the right energy, you have Alzheimer's, you have migraines, erectile dysfunction, diabetes, cancers. Guys, 10 to 30% of cancers are genetic, bad luck. There's nothing you can do about it. The other 70% of cancers, modern day cancers, are the result of insulin not working well. It means that 70% of the cancers we have today are preventable. You have your fatty liver, heart disease. Unfortunately, this slide is not large enough to be able to enumerate all the diseases we face in modern day society that are related to insulin resistance. It's not large enough. This is just a depiction that when insulin resistance sets in, you have a shortage of energy, which now results in dysfunction of the cells. Now, we've spoken about that. So that's number one, insulin resistance. Let's talk about the second aspect, microbiome dysfunction, your gut. What is microbiome dysfunction? To be able to understand what microbiome dysfunction, let's explain what the microbiome is. In our large intestine, there are 30 to 100 trillion bacteria that when God, our creator, made us, he put those bacteria in our gut. Those are called the microbiome. 30 to 100 trillion bacteria that live in our gut. They're called the microbiome. Now, we have to live in what we call a do for me, I do for you relationship with them. It's like a quid quo pro. You scratch my back, I scratch yours. Okay. And what we provide for this bacteria, we're supposed to provide them food and shelter. And in turn, they're supposed to provide for us these functions that I'm going to talk about. The first function of the microbiome is to help in breaking down fiber. Fiber is one of those foods that, does not humans do not have the enzymes to be able to digest it. It passes through the colon intact. It's food for the microbiome. The second thing is that the microbiome, this bacteria help to protect the gut from pathogenic bacteria. Pathogenic just simply means disease-causing bacteria. And how do they do that? They do that by producing a very special, what we call a postbiotic, a molecule called a short-chain fatty acid. This short-chain fatty acid is what goes and helps protect the gut from disease-causing bacteria. The cells of the gut are lined together, one after the other like this. So a cell of the gut to a cell of the gut, they make the wall of the gut. So just imagine multiple connections like that, my fist to one fist to other fist. Now, these short chain fatty acids, what they are, they're special molecules that we cannot get from eating any foods or anything. They are produced by this bacteria in the gut, the microbiome. And when they are produced, they act like cement. Imagine this is one cell, this is another cell. They act like cement. They come and pour cement on this area where the knuckles meet and make these areas tighter. These areas where the knuckles meet are called the tight junctions of the cell. Make it very tight so that it's not loose. If it's loose, bacteria can leak out of that loose area into the blood and cause infections and cause inflammation. So that helps to do that by positioning the short chain fatty acids, protecting your gut from disease causing bacteria. The other thing is that it helps to regulate the immune system. When I learned about this is something I was never taught in medical school, but when I learned about this, I was stunned. 70% of the body's immune system resides in the gut. 70% of our immune system. The other 30% resides in the bone marrow, the lymphatics, the lymph node. So this bacteria, this 30 to 100 trillion bacteria that reside in their gut, one of their very important functions is to train the gut, the immune system on how to react. The immune system is our defense line. So when the microbiome is healthy, it gives the immune system a healthy training. A healthy training will look like this. Hey, immune system, you see that bacteria there? He's a bad guy, but you could probably take him out with a simple stone. You just a David sling and a stone, you could take him out. We don't need a handgun for him. So just that. You see that other bacteria there? He's a bad dude, but if you use a David sling and a stone, you're not gonna kill him. For this guy, you need a handgun to take him out. You need some smoke. You see that other guy? He is bad. If you use a handgun on him, he doesn't die. You need an AK-47 to spray him out. That's a healthy response, a healthy training. The other thing it tells the microbiome is say, hey, do you see that guy right there? What the microbiome tells the immune system, do you see that guy right there? And the immune system says, what guy? I said, that guy right there. What guy? That guy. The immune system says, I cannot see. What are you talking about there? And the microbiome says, the reason you cannot see that guy right there is that he's in camouflage. He's acting like a chameleon. He's in camo, you know, and beware of him. He is not the enemy. He's, just in camo to do some reconnaissance work, but he's not the enemy. Don't shoot bullets at him. Okay. He is part of the body cells, and the immune system says, okay, I got it. And the immune system doesn't attack the body cells. The opposite is true. When the immune system is unhealthy, when the microbiome is unhealthy, it gives the immune system an unhealthy training. The unhealthy training is it causes the immune system to be trigger happy. The immune system is ready to just fire. Like it trains the immune system. I want you to shoot first and ask questions later. And this is how it looks like. It sees as a bacteria. It says, you see that bacteria right there? He's a bad guy. He deserves to die. You could probably take him out with a handgun, but he's a bad dude. Why take him out with a handgun? He deserves to die anyway. Let's just use an AK-47 and spray him and overkill, even though the bacteria deserve to die. The other thing it tells the immune system is like, you see that guy right there? He may be in camouflage. I don't know. He may be part of us. I don't know. You know what? Let's not take a chance. Let's just blow his head off. Even though I don't know whether he's part of us or not, we'll take him to autopsy and figure out whether he was the enemy or he was part of us. And when the immune system is trained like that, the immune system now begins to attack the cells of the body. And when it attacks the cells of the body, therein lies how you have autoimmune diseases. Important aspect of our microbiome training the immune system. The last thing is that the microbiome helps in the synthesis of vitamins, vitamin B and vitamin K. So those are the functions that the microbiome does. What then is microbiome dysfunction or dysbiosis? You see, these organisms, these bacteria that live in our gut, live in a 50-50% population. They're 50% bad bacteria and they're 50% good bacteria. Okay, they balance each other out. Dysbiosis or microbiome dysfunction, or when we say that your gut is unhealthy, is when you now have an imbalance in the bacteria. The bad bacteria proliferate, maybe go to 70% at the expense of the good bacteria that go to 30%. An imbalance in that microbial population, you lose the 50-50 check and balance. The number one reason why that happens is a shortage of food. You see, I mentioned in this slide that the food for the microbiome is fiber, okay? When there is a shortage of food, survival of the fittest sets in. It's just like if you live in a hurricane area and they say that there's a hurricane coming. You run to the grocery store, all the milk on the floor is on the shelf is gone, all the bread is gone, all the tissue paper is gone. People panic, survival of the fittest. When there isn't enough fiber, we don't consume enough fibers. Our foods are so processed, we're not taking in enough fibers. These organisms, who their main food is fiber, begin to starve. Survival of the fittest sets in. The bad bacteria, that are the stronger bacteria, what they do is they hoard the little fiber that is there, and then they say to themselves, let us go ahead and increase our army so we can keep a hold on this little fiber that we have at the expense of the good bacteria. And therein lies microbiome dysfunction, dysbiosis. When you have dysbiosis, microbiome dysfunction, it causes a slew of illnesses. And this slide is not also exhaustive. There's so many other diseases that are caused by dysbiosis, microbiome dysfunction, that we cannot put on this slide. You could see on here that you have lupus. It's an autoimmune disease. That's the microbiome shooting first, asking questions later. Hashimoto's, an autoimmune disease. One of our guests, Amari, had Hashimoto's. Autoimmune disease, the immune system attacking the body, when it's not supposed to. MS, autoimmune disease. You may see other things on here that you're surprised. Cancer linked to that. Type 2 diabetes linked to that. One of the things that was surprising to me as I was learning this as a physician after the fact, of medical school, was that anxiety and depression are linked to the gut. Very, very surprising to me. And I say this, the reason, when you understand the biology of anxiety and depression, is going to make sense why anxiety and depression are linked to the gut. There is a neurotransmitter called serotonin, okay? Serotonin, some people call it a hormone, some people call it a neurotransmitter. 90% of that that's a hormone that helps to secure our mood, okay? That's the mood hormone, the happiness hormone. The happiness hormone. 90% of that hormone, 90, is produced in the gut. 90%. The other 10% of it is produced in the central nervous system. So if you have a factory that normally makes 90,000 tons of steel, and you have another branch of the factory that makes only 10,000 tons of steel every month, and the factory that makes 90,000 tons of steel goes down, it cannot bring its product to the market. And so you have anxiety and depression, the gut, when the gut is not healthy. Now, this next slide is a slide I call the metabolic sequence of inflammation. It's as a result of insulin resistance and dysbiosis. When you have insulin resistance, your insulin not working well, or an unbalanced gut, the 50-50 imbalance in the imbalance in the microbial population of the gut, it results in energy shortage, metabolic dysfunction. So what it is a fire starts here. A fire starts here at insulin resistance and microbiome dysfunction, your insulin not working well, and an unhealthy gut. It results in energy shortage. That energy shortage results in malfunction of the cell, oxidative stress, injury, and malfunction of the cell. When a cell is injured, the number one thing it does first is to cry out to the immune system, please help. It cries out to the immune system, and the immune system usually responds by deploying an inflammatory response. So the immune system comes back to this cell to try to take care of the problem. But what the immune system is seeing in this cell is smoke. It's not seeing the fire. The fire actually started 2 houses ago at insulin resistance, spread to metabolic dysfunction, spread to the cell. So the immune system is not able to solve the problem because the problem doesn't reside in the cell. The problem resides 2 houses ago at insulin resistance and dysbiosis. So what happens is it's a failed inflammatory response, failed help that is something that is designed to help that doesn't help the cell. This problem continues. Because this problem continues, this sequence continues, and you continue to have inflammation, because the core of the problem, is not taken care of. Chronic inflammatory states results in diseases and symptoms. Now, all of that is bad news. But there's good news. All of that is depressing stuff. But there's good news. Why? Because science now has more and more evidence that if the cause of our problems were due to these two things, insulin resistance and dysbiosis, causing an energy shortage that resulted in disease, malfunction, energy shortage resulted in a cell malfunction in disease. If you restore the energy shortage, you can reverse that disease condition. It's that simple. If the problem was energy that led to the cell malfunction, the loss of energy, if I restore that energy, the cell no longer malfunctions, those diseases go away. And that is good news. I tell you guys, our ancestors 100 years ago did not have these diseases. Dr. Tiffany, if I have to give you a time machine and tell you to go back into the past 100 years and come back and report to me whether our ancestors had type 2 diabetes or CAD or Hashimoto's or any of this, you're going to come back and tell me they did not because they live in a way that they did not have energy shortages. Reversal of the energy shortages that cause these diseases cause a reversal of the disease condition. I'll give it to you with this analogy. If I'm driving in a car and that car runs out of gas, that car is gonna stop. The car stops because the power source is no longer there. It relies on gas to power the engine. It doesn't stop because of an intrinsic failure of the engine. No, the engine still has everything it takes to run. The engine doesn't have the juice, the gas. If I walk to the nearest gas station, I buy gas, I walk back to my car on the road with a gallon and I pump gas in that car starts again. It roars back to life again. If any of you have ever run out of gas, I ran out of gas about 2 times. It's embarrassing. I vow never to run out of gas again. If any of you have ever run out of gas, when you put gas back in your car, the thought doesn't even cross your mind. I hope this car is going to start again. That thought does not cross your mind at all because it's just so intrinsic. The problem is it ran out of gas. When I put gas, this car should start again. And guys, so it is with the body. It is so simple but so profound because these modern day diseases, as a result of energy shortage. When we restore that energy shortage, just like putting gas back in the car and the car starts again, those diseases go away. And that's good news. And I have a solution to present to you. It's a solution called the Feel Great System. There's this company that asked a fantastic or intelligent question. They asked the question, why did our ancestors 100 years ago not have to contend with these diseases that we contend in modern day society? And they answered their own question that it had to do with their foods that they ate. And so they asked the second question, what if we could go back and look at the nutrients that our ancestors were consuming that helped to secure their energy and just get those nutrients and package them into a simple product, to give people, for them to always remain in an energy normal state. And that's how these products were born. So that's how these products were born. So these products are called a part of what we call the Feel Great system, and they're what we call a nutraceutical. What is a nutraceutical? A nutraceutical is a product that is made 100% from plants, 100% from plants. It has some nutritional benefits, but it has health benefits that outweigh the nutritional benefits. Health benefits that are therapeutic, that outweigh the nutritional benefits. So that's what these are. And there are two things in this system. The first product I'll talk about is a product called the Unimate. The Unimate is made from a plant that is native to South America called the yerba mate plant. These two products help to address these two conditions, and I'll show you how. The yerba mate plant, contains a special phytonutrient called polyphenols. Okay, Polyphenols are very important in our metabolism. And so when you consume the yerba mate, the polyphenol that it has one property. It has a property of causing you to burn fat. And then we could use that property to be able to reverse insulin resistance. How? Remember that the way you developed insulin resistance was a cell that was filled with fat. Okay. When the cell was filled with fat, it occupied the place in the room that glucose needed to go in. Glucose could not enter the cell. As a result, energy could not be made. You now have a product like this called the Unimate, which contains a special phytonutrient called polyphenol. That polyphenol causes fat burning, causes you to burn fat. Okay. You now consume you now consume the Unimate. When you consume the Unimate, what it does is that it goes to this cell, it goes to this cell and starts causing lipolysis, fat burning. This cell now transforms to looking like this. It has less fat in it, and as lipolysis continues to occur, the burning of fat, this cell now becomes like this. All of a sudden, this cell is free. All the fat that this cell had in this scenario is no longer there. Now, the glucose that had accumulated in the cell uh, is now able to get into this cell. And when the glucose gets into this cell, it could go through the electron transport chain in the mitochondria to result in the production of energy, ATP. You're now putting gas back into the tank, restoring energy. Unimate. That's what it does by reversing the first step of how you develop insulin resistance, lipolysis. The second thing that happens, because this happens, it causes the resolution of the second way in which you develop insulin resistance, which is too much insulin. Remember, when you had too much glucose that accumulated in the blood, a text message was sent to the pancreas that resulted in the pancreas producing too much insulin. Too much insulin was like a CEO that the employees of the CEO had lost their respect for. So now lipolysis has occurred. The cell is now free. All of this glucose has entered the cell. What happens is now the concentration of glucose in the blood drops. When the concentration of glucose in the blood drops, a text message is sent to the pancreas. Hey, pancreas boy, there's no need for you to have that high tone of insulin anymore. We need to produce a lower amount of insulin. One-to-one relationship between glucose concentration and insulin. So the pancreas now switches to a low amount of insulin. Do you know what a low amount of insulin is like to the cell or to the body? Think about the CEO who had gone crazy. When the insulin goes from being too much to low insulin, it's like a CEO who had gone crazy, who now comes to his senses. And one day he goes to work with a humble head and he calls a meeting. He tells the employees, guys, I am so sorry. For the last 2 months, I have been a jerk. I have been a bad boss, doing some unreasonable things, the firings, unreasonable demands. I am so sorry. Please forgive me. When the employees of the CEO hear that humility and that apology, they are taken aback. And when they are taken aback, they forgive their boss and regain their respect back for the boss. When they regain their respect back for the boss, they are more likely to do with all their heart, bring to their projects their A game again. Translate that to the cell. When insulin becomes low, the cell regains its respect back for insulin. Insulin is no longer acting like a bully and a tyrant to the cell. The insulin has now gone to the cell just like a bully on the playground and told the kids on the playground, this bully, guys, I am so sorry I've been a bully, please forgive me. Kids are very forgiving. They're like, oh, he said he's sorry and humble. The kids forgive the bully on the playground. The cell forgives insulin, and the cell now opens its doors. It's now amenable to doing what insulin says. So initially the doors were this close. The cell now opens its door. It's more welcoming to the command of insulin. More glucose enters the cell. That glucose can go through the electron transport chain to result in the production of energy, putting gas back in your tank so that the car starts again. That's what the Unimate does, and it does that because of its property of lipolysis, causing fat burning. Lipolysis is a fancy term to say fat burning. The other product in the protocol is a fiber. this product right here. It also helps to reverse insulin resistance. So the Unimate reverses insulin not working well. The fiber also helps to reverse insulin not working well. It does it exactly by the same mechanism, exactly the same mechanism like this. The other thing the fiber does is that fiber helps to decrease your glycemic index. It helps to decrease the amount of insulin, as a result that the body produces. And why is that important? So let's say you and I go to a restaurant to eat one evening. We're both feeling like having some lasagna, right? I know a thing or two about fiber. What fiber does is fiber slows the transit of food through the colon. When food goes through the colon in a slower manner, the release of glucose into the blood is slower. Without fiber, food goes through the GI tract in a fast manner. The fast transit of food through the GI tract results in a very fast release of glucose in the blood. So let's say you and I go to a favorite Italian restaurant one evening. We're both feeling like eating lasagna, okay? You pay $45 for your plate of lasagna. I pay $45 for my plate of lasagna. All right, you go ahead and you eat your plate of lasagna. You don't know anything about, you don't know what you don't know. You don't know about fiber, you don't know about this product, okay? You eat your plate of lasagna. This is what your blood sugar is going to do. Your blood sugar is going to pick up like that and go back down in the space of 1 to 2 hours. And that blood sugar may be a blood sugar of 180. For me, I know a thing or two about fiber. I know a thing or two that this product, by the way, is made from fiber from several different plants that has been merged together in a spatial polysaccharide matrix. So I know that this product contains fiber is going to slow down how my food moves through the digestive tract. So what I do is I consume a sachet of this first, just a sachet of this, and I eat the same quantity of lasagna that you've had, exactly the same quantity of lasagna. This is what my blood sugar is going to do. And that blood sugar for me may be a blood sugar of 90. You and I have eaten exactly the same plate of lasagna. Your blood sugar has gone up to 180, mine has gone up to 90. What's going to happen, because there's a one-to-one relationship between the concentration of glucose and the amount of insulin that is produced by the pancreas. Because your blood sugar has gone up to 180, your pancreas is going to have to produce a commensurate higher amount of insulin to deal with that blood sugar of 180. So for you, your pancreas is going to have to pump out 20 units of insulin, okay? For me, I've only produced 90 units of glucose. My pancreas is going to have to produce a commensurate lower amount of insulin to deal with that blood sugar of 90. So for me, my pancreas may produce 5 units of insulin. I want you to think of 20 units of insulin as the CEO that had gone crazy, the cuckoo CEO that the employees do not respect. Translate that to the cell. When you have 20 units of insulin, high insulin, you're more insulin resistant. Your insulin doesn't work well. I want you to think of 5 units of insulin as a humble CEO that the employees respect. Translate that to the cell. So that's the implication of fiber. And last thing, because insulin is what we call an anabolic hormone, what's going to happen is that when you produce more insulin, you store more calories. You and I have had the same plate of lasagna, exactly the same quantity. But because you produce 20 units of insulin, from this plate of lasagna, you're going to gain 950 calories maybe. From this same plate of lasagna, at the same quantity, I'm only going to gain maybe 400 calories. That's wild. You and I paid the same dollar amount. You're leaving with, 20 units of insulin in your blood. I'm leaving with 5. You're leaving with 950 calories gained. I'm leaving with only 400 calories. That's what fiber does. And so by so doing, it helps to reverse or to put you more towards insulin sensitivity. The last thing is that fiber is food for the microbiome. And that's how it helps to reverse the dysbiosis. Remember, you develop dysbiosis because of an imbalance in, because of a shortage of food, shortage of fiber. We don't consume enough fiber in our day and age. And when we don't consume enough fiber, the microbiome starves. When the microbiome starves, there's a survival of the fetus and competition that results in dysbiosis. This right there goes and feeds the microbiome with food. And so it takes away the need for a shortage. If there is no shortage, there's no need for scramble. And you have that 50-50 balance. Our ancestors ate maybe about 80 to 90 grams of fiber a day. In our day and age, it's estimated that the average man and woman in the United States consumes 10 to 12 grams of fiber. If fiber is so important for our metabolic health, insulin resistance, and our gut health, it's no wonder why diseases, things linked to dysbiosis and insulin resistance are running rampant. So I want to end by saying the good news is that this feel great system, is a solution to reversing the energy shortage that is at the core of the modern day diseases that we face. We can take charge, we can live again, we could reclaim our health again. And that is my final word. I'm going to end here, and I'm going to pass the mic to Amory, who is going to moderate from here, and I'll stop sharing my screen. Thank you guys for listening.
Thank you, Dr. Dieter. That was great. There's a couple of people in the comments that had some specific questions for you as well. If you want to go ahead and check some of those out while I do this. So the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to actually take you, let me remove spotlight for Dr. Dieter while he looks at that. I want to show you some proof of, I want to show you some proof and also have one of our guests here speak to it, and then we can open up for some additional questions too if you have some. Let me just go ahead and start off and show you some evidence of other people, including our very own Dr. Dieter. This is Dr. Dieter on the very left before he discovered intermittent fasting. And then this is 5 years in the black jacket, 5 years of intermittent fasting and jogging 3 days a week. The difference between the black and the pink jacket is then 2.5 months on the Feel Great system and got too busy with work. So no jogging. But you can see how well this works. Even it's not just the intermittent fasting, it's the system that works. These two pictures, Dr. Kinney had just gotten out of the hospital. I mean, you see who's not feeling it, has hair growing long. This is 35 days apart on the system, showing that it works. He had inflammation. He had all sorts of health issues that were going in, including AFib. So that was a big one. He got rid of his AFib. This is our friend Kimberly. This is just 60 days apart. You can see the inflammation in her face gone. And Angelita, this is a couple months between these two. And what she saw was the key thing for her was that she was struggling with anxiety and depression for almost a decade. And when she started using this system, you can see obviously physically she thinned up, but she also did not need to go refill that depression medication anymore because she was feeling great. So it does a lot for your mind. This is Dr. Marla. She's 70 years old. In this picture, she was on a cruise and she needed a cane in order to walk around this cruise, go up and down the stairs. This is 3.5 months on the system. She was having just chronic fatigue. She was feeling brain fog, some long COVID symptoms, inflammation, all of these things. And when she used this system, this is just 3.5 months. She no longer walks with a cane. She's out hiking in the Arizona mountains and she's got rid of her brain fog, normalized all of her blood work, including cholesterol and blood pressure numbers. This is Jonathan Scott. He's an NFL player. He lost 52 pounds in 52 days. What's so significant about his story? Two things. One of them, arthritis. So he thought he had a football injury in his hand where he could not move his hand like this up and down. And what happened is after he was using the system for just like 50 days, when I first met him, he couldn't close his hand like this. And after that, now he's like, hey, look, I can move my hand. Psoriasis covering all the back of his neck and part of his back. This isn't him, but this shows you how psoriasis can clear up. This woman had had psoriasis for her adult life, as long as she can remember. Then just a couple months on Feel Great, she was able to clear it up almost completely. Then we added some omega-3 capsules to her and it complete cleared her skin. And you can see how painful and terrible that must have felt. We see significant weight loss works as well as Ozempic, but without any side effects. So people are able to make some significant changes in their weight, melt off belly fat. And when they melt off the belly fat, they don't have any hanging skin like people often get if they do like bypass surgery, gastro bypass surgery. They may lose weight quickly and have it off. But when you lose weight through intermittent fasting, you have something that's called autophagy, where your body actually eats the skin as a fuel source, eats those cells. A1C, type 2 diabetic, from a 12.2% A1C now down to 4.8. No more meds. High blood pressure's gone. IBS, which he had since he was 15 years old, gone. Acid reflux gone. Migraines no more. Insomnia is gone. Dropped 2 pant sizes and 2 shirt sizes. We have Roe. Roe lives in Texas. A1C went from 14 to 5.9. And we're gonna sit and meet Keith right here. This is our cue to talk to Keith. And I'm gonna show you a picture. Let me spotlight Keith. Hopefully we can ask you to unmute. I'm gonna show you Keith a picture. Are you able to unmute? Let me show a picture of Keith because Keith was a type 2 diabetic for most of his adult life, 25 years as a diabetic, 90% of that time on insulin, even at the end before he discovered this 108 units of insulin a day. I'm going to show you a foot ulcer, and I want to let you know that this is a little bit alarming to see. So I like to warn people before I show it so that they're ready. This right here is a diabetic foot ulcer. And this is at one point someone said like untreated. Like, nope, he was being treated. He was regularly seeing doctors, and his foot ulcer got so bad that he went septic and died in January on the table. They were able to resuscitate him. Then after about $180,000 of treatment in a hyperbaric chamber, driving 45 minutes driving 45 minutes a day, to do that, kind of living your whole life. When you found the Feel Great system that Dr. Dieter shared about, you still were on one of those wheelies where you put your knee on a wheel and push yourself along because you still couldn't walk on this foot. 2.5 months on this system, his foot is healed. It looks like this right now. And we're going to hear from Keith on this story and show you that this is just a real regular person. Sash on social media and use this to change your life. So I know I shared a lot of your thunder, Keith, but tell us a little bit about, I mean, kind of take us back to this place that you were when you first found this system, feeling a bit hopeless, and how you got from there to here.
Well, thanks, Anne Marie. When after I passed away in January, I made it a mission to heal myself, to get better, or try to. And I found this protocol, and I want to say in May of this year. And when my grandson was born, I bought in, and within days. I mean, on day one, energy went up so much I wanted to get back in the gym. Day two, like you said, I was off 108 units of insulin that I'd been on for, oh God, a long time. Um, and in saying that, in the first 30 days, I forgot about this earlier. I actually got in an argument with my daughter. She said I needed to do end of life stuff because I didn't think I was going to be here. And I reluctantly we got in an argument, and then I filled out the paperwork, which I no longer need. But um, in saying that, within the first 30 days, I want to say I was off probably half my meds, and I was on 15 meds a day, 6 injections a day. I was getting injections in each eye um, to try and curb the bleeding from the retinas. Um, my cholesterol was through the roof, my blood pressure was through the roof, my everything was just out of control. And by time I hit month two, I was off all but one med, no more injections in my eyes. Foot had healed up beautifully. In fact, I'm healing up in ways I haven't been able to do in, oh gosh, probably since I was in my teens. Um, it is literally, and now that I'm on 90 days, or well, a little bit past now, but I set up my doctor's appointment for that week of the 90 days, and my blood work is spot on. My blood pressure has come back in line. I'm down 65 pounds, 11 inches on my waist. I'm healing like a champ. I feel like I'm 20 years younger. Um, and I mean, it has truly been life-changing.
Mhm.
And even my doctors, my foot doctor's now starting to share it with his patients. My eye doctor says he hasn't seen my eyes. They've actually improved. Have not seen this in over 4 years. My cardiologist is looking at it. My pulmonologist, he was like, "You've given me nothing to complain about." And I'm okay. Well, I'll work on that. But
Yeah.
I mean, they're all amazed.
And what's so exciting is that you have this life in the future where you don't have seven medical professionals trying to keep you in line, right? You're going to be at a point where your foot doctor is going to be like, "Hey, you're good. I don't need you." Your endocrinologist is going to be like, "There's nothing else I can do for you." And all of those doctor visits, your life was basically managing diabetes before. I mean,
Yeah,
you're
that's all I did.
just managing diabetes. And in all this time, did any of these seven doctors, I might be exaggerating, there may be five, did anyone talk to you about how type 2 diabetes is a lifestyle disease? And if you change the way you eat, you can reverse type 2 diabetes.
Reminiscing on that, when I first got diagnosed, my diabetic coach actually came into the room with a bag of M&Ms. And she's like, "You can eat a couple. It's not a big deal. You just can't sit down and eat 3 pounds of them," which, well, that's obvious, but until this came around, I had no idea.
Yeah, you didn't know the connection between those two. And so why we're here, the reason that we're here, and Dr. Tiffany, I'm going to spotlight you, give you a little notice before I put you on spotlight here. Part of what we're here to talk about and why we end up reaching people out on social media is because the medical system is just the best. I'm on here with two physicians, right? They're good. They're all good people. The system is just designed to have a focus on pharmaceuticals. And we're here to talk about how we have a lifestyle change in these two products that make it easy to do this lifestyle change. I mean, that's really the difference, right? Is probably someone at some point told you, hey, eat less, exercise more, like don't eat so much. And you're like, okay, don't, see if you can reduce the carbohydrate, the sugar out of your body. But when you have a sugar addiction, it's not so easy as just saying, I'm gonna pass. What these two products do is they make the lifestyle change so simple, you're not even really deciding anymore. You're just like, well, I'm not really hungry. I'm just gonna fast. I'm gonna take the balance and it's just gonna cut whatever I eat, it's gonna cut the carbohydrate absorption about in half. And that's what makes the huge difference to do that, just plants. There's some questions in the comments. It looks like we've been answering a little bit as we go, but if there was someone else that wanted to hear some more kidney disease, Dr. Dieter, is there anything else that you saw from the comments that you wanted to address?
I think I've been addressing the comments in the chat. Um, I think I pretty much covered as many of the comments as possible in the chat as I could.
Hmm. And we have Dr. Tiffany is also a physician. Dr. Tiffany, can you just talk about why would a doctor come serve with us and want to teach people about this change?
Well, you would think that all of us would want to do this. And I think deep down, a lot of us actually started out feeling this way. But unfortunately, with the way medicine has moved to where it's been more pharmaceutical heavy, that has become the norm. And like anything else, you get stuck in the norm. And so it wasn't until I woke up completely, decided this was not for me. I mean, it really took a life event for me to actually decide I want to be healthier. I want to enjoy my life. I want to be working in my purpose and helping people. And it was that awakening, that red pill, so to speak, that had me start looking at these things and start getting on social media and start talking about all the lifestyle changes where I came across you, Anne Marie. And if you are a physician or busy, period, corporate America, you want your life back. You want your time back. You want that time back with your family, healthy time back with your family. And so once I came across that and looked at all the studies and started using it for myself, got off of my blood pressure medicine, helped my brother who was on his second stint in the ICU for uncontrolled type 2 diabetes, almost hyperosmolar coma, meaning about to have a coma because the sugars were so bad. And I put him on these products, took him home and was able to get him off his insulin, his Trulicity, his metformin, and literally saw those sugars come down. And so it was that alone for me that allowed me to believe, oh yeah, this stuff actually does work. So why not try it? And why not tell the world about it?
I love that. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I love it. There's a Sheffy says there's a question on MS.
Yeah, I think I answered that question on MS and I can echo it again. So, MS, as I showed in that slide, is an autoimmune disease. And autoimmune diseases are driven by a trigger happy immune system that has its hand on the trigger, attacking, causing the immune system to attack the body cells. It's driven by that metabolic sequence of inflammation I was talking about. So depending on how advanced your MS is, right? This product can improve that significantly or even reverse it completely, depending on how advanced your MS is. The worst case scenario this will do to you if you have MS is to, if it doesn't reverse it, is to cause a significant improvement. The best case scenario is that it's gone. It's a thing of the past because it takes away the inflammation. It takes away the dysbiosis that is putting fuel to the immune system to attack the body cells. The immune system, there is science now that says that our immune system can be retrained. The bad training that our immune system had to attack the body cells, it can be retrained to identify that that guy is in camouflage, do not shoot. And so absolutely, this can reverse MS in many cases.
And same with, I know Dr. Tiffany has a personal story about her mother. There's also a question about fibromyalgia. Keith, you had something.
Yeah, I forgot to mention, I had in 2018, I was diagnosed with Guillain-Barré. And since I've started the protocol, literally before I took the protocol, I could tell by the pain level what time of day it was. And I was on two different pain meds, both controlled substances, trying to curb that. And I haven't not been on either of them in months. And the symptoms have literally just washed away. So
Wow.
it will definitely help.
Yeah.
Just like,
And can I add just one little point? Because you're dealing with autoimmune conditions and the medications we use to treat those are literal shotguns. They kill your immune system. I would watch my mother take medications because my mother is 74 with multiple sclerosis, and I would watch her take medications that would literally have her down for weeks at a time. So it really becomes, do I have the proof that it's going to reverse this? I may not. But you know what I do know? The medications you're on are making you feel horrible. It becomes something worth trying. It's a 90-day money back guarantee. If this can possibly give you any relief, any energy, your legs stop dragging like my mom's did. Now she can wear her heels again. If you can get those small changes that make your quality of life better, is it worth it?
Yeah. Jackie Brown, to answer your question about fibromyalgia, fibromyalgia is driven by insulin resistance and dysbiosis. It's gonna cause your fibromyalgia to go poof, gone, be gone. Somebody is asking, does it have an effect on moles? I don't have an answer to that. My honest answer is I don't know.
I'm not sure.
Well, a lot of times people call moles skin tags or skin tags moles. And so a lot of times that's what we're referring to. And there was a great study that came out by the Journal of Dermatologists that if you have more than 5 or 6 of those skin tags, and then people of color, some of those look like moles, that you definitely have insulin resistance. And so we do see those fall off, and people who thought they were moles, those falling off as well.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. So I have Hashimoto. I had Hashimoto's. So my Hashimoto's is in remission. I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's about 15 years ago and spent most of my life on levothyroxine. I have the metrics that don't pop anymore, so my blood work is normal, and I don't have any of the symptoms of Hashimoto's, which is like complete exhaustion, inability to lose weight, freezing toes and fingers. I don't have any of those symptoms anymore and have not for about 2.5 years. I've been on this for 3 years. Thyroid nodules So mine has shrunk or stayed the same, but there's you can naturally reduce those thyroid nodules as well. And then I'm gonna leave the other one to the doctors. I don't know that word.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's just rheumatoid arthritis.
I did. Oh yeah. So I can actually my husband in his knees went from a pain level 10 arthritis in his knees. Like 50, the guy was like 52 years old, going on 95 years old with his knees. Very quickly, he went from a pain level 10 to a pain level 5 in a matter of a couple weeks, stopped hobbling around. And now 3 years later, he lives with like a pain level 1 or 2. So he can still feel it, but it's not impacting his life. And then I had talked about the football player that could not close his hand. And 6 weeks later, the guy's like, look at this trick. So you'll see a lot of that inflammation go down, normalize, and you won't believe that you had suffered that long when you didn't have to. Yeah, I think we're going to wrap it up. The Dr. Dieter's contact information is in there if you have follow-up questions for him. And I want to, if it's okay, Dr. Tiffany, I'd love to have you close us out tonight. We're doing this call again tomorrow night at the same time, same Zoom number. If you are here and you wished that someone you loved heard this in person for themselves, please invite them tomorrow night. And we're going to go over this again and they can hear it. They can hear it. There's some thank yous going on. So, Dr. Tiffany, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Yeah, and so this becomes a little difficult as we get closer to the holidays because I know so many people lose people. Unfortunately, I had to lose my father 20 years ago because he didn't want to do his prescription medications and he was searching for something natural. And at that time, I was just in medical school. I knew nothing. I was not able to help him. And so I sit here now as it's getting closer to the holidays and I feel some sort of way. After seeing my brother in the ICU, literally seeing him with the tubes in his body, just like my father looked before he ended up passing way too soon, it took me into a spiral. So now here I am making a plea to any of you. If you have loved ones, if you have friends, and you know they are struggling with this, you've sat here and listened to this great presentation, you've seen these questions, these testimonials, you have some sort of idea that this might be helpful for them. This natural product, is it worth sharing with them so that you don't have to experience the loss that so many people are dealing with, especially now dealing with the pain of that loss? So I urge you, if you do know someone, now is the time to share. And if that is you, do not leave your family wanting or wishing you would have done something different like I do. And so that's what fuels me. That's what keeps me going. And I hope that that resonates with someone and that you reach out to the person that invited you here on this call and you make that first step to make a change and reclaim your health.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you all.